today is a good time to go back. It's rewind time. No, I'm just kidding. Hello, it's called yeah. And we're gonna be talking about some ancient technology that you guys might have forgotten in the past, but it's still relevant to this day. And we're going to be talking about controllers. Amazing controllers, fantastic controllers. We're going to be talking about the best, the bad, the worst, the ugly, the bada bing, bada boom, bada bam. And we're going to be ranking them. And it's going to be fun. We're going to have a really good time. I think I only see one problem with this list, and that is, hold on. There's one problem with this list. It's missing a certain Sony controller. All right. I'm like, wait a minute. I got all the controllers, including the new Steam Deck controller, and then I just noticed there was no PS5 controller. It's like, what the heck? Where is the PS5? So I got input. All right. So first of all, we're gonna start off with the design of this off-brand controller. This off-brand controller is basically back in the day, you know, you're like just moving out of arcade kind of art controller. It has the A and B buttons on it, and then the D-pad on it. It's a terrible controller. It's a terrible controller. All right, I'm sorry. I know it might have been good back in the day, but listen, it's the big 2025. And we're going to be talking about some crazy controllers going up in here. Some crazy controllers. And starting off with our first B tier, we got the Xbox original controller. This controller was big. It was bulky. It was hard to reach your thumbs to actually use the joysticks. But the buttons were colorful, and the big, you know, Xbox logo in the middle, iconic. So iconic that they put the Xbox button in the middle of the controller, and that became a staple for every controller moving on forward. I remember when I was playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 on the original Xbox with my older brother and my father, and we'd be playing that game, and we'd be playing a lot, and we'd be using these controllers. And as a kid, I always struggled to use the controllers. My hands were really small, so grabbing the controller and actually using it was difficult. So yeah, the biggest flaw of this controller is it was too big. It was too big. It was ahead of its time, you know, really, because I was a kid and the controller was too big. Now, if I probably use the controller, it'd probably be fine, but I still have all those memories of me struggling to use the controller because it was so big and bulky, and, you know, just didn't really feel right in your hands. It didn't feel right. And that's really, you want to get the feel for holding a controller. It's got to feel right. And now we have a legendary controller, an A-tier controller. And disregard what I said about this off-brand controller, but we have the SNES controller here. This controller is iconic. Your old heads love it. Your new gens don't even know it exists. But it is the controller for playing pixel games. Pixel games. I say pixel games. You're playing pixel games with this. It was really good for its time when it came out. A lot of people love the controller. A lot of people, you know, really are happy that the controller was expanded upon and given a joystick. A joystick's a must-have with the controller. But for the time, it was really good. People loved it. It was very, very fantastic. And, you know, the games that came with it, we're not talking about games or consoles, but it was really, you know, what you could do with that controller and for the games that you were playing, it was pretty phenomenal back then. Was I alive during that time? No, but I did have an uncle that had the SNES and stuff, so I did get to play it as a little kid. As a wee little lad, I did get to play. So that is my opinions on it, and it felt good in your hands. You know, not as good as some modern controllers, but it felt pretty all right. Now we're going into the Sony controller, the first, the Sony One, or the whatever they want to call it, the Sega Genesis. No, I'm just kidding. Don't kill me. Well, we got the first PlayStation controller, the OG PS1, and it was behind. It was behind. The Xbox original, though bulky and big, was better. Honestly, for the games that were coming out on the PlayStation PS1, it's probably a C tier controller, because there was a lot of yeah, I think it was a C tier. You know what? Y'all are gonna probably hang me up to dry for that, but I think it was a C tier. It wasn't like, you know, just an ergonomic NES controller. Exactly. And the games they were making at the time were not very, you know, it would have been better if though they had a joystick. But they did solve that in their next patch. Now, we're gonna be talking about the Wii U gamepad. This thing's pretty cool. Do I like it? Not really. Do I think it was revolutionary for the time? Probably, but it wasn't revolutionary enough. Especially when at this time the 3DS was going, and I know the 3DS isn't a controller, but I much preferred the 3DS over the Wii U. I'm not gonna, it's pretty plain. Never played it before? Yeah. What you could do with the touchscreen in certain games, like the Mickey Inc. game, was pretty cool. Was it good? Honestly, you know what? It's more like a C tier. I'm gonna be honest. It's above the PlayStation controller, though. So we'll put it like that. Because, again, what you could do was pretty cool, but was it necessary? Not really. And there wasn't a lot that you could do with the gamepad, you know? So it's just kind of one of those things. I'm gonna put it in C tier. I feel confident. Now we have a big one. We have a big dog controller, and it goes in the D tier. This controller was really bad. It was really bad. It was my shale. This controller made no sense whatsoever. I don't know how you were like, it was played Donkey 1 on that. Yeah, the joystick is Donkey Kong 1 on that. Yeah, I love the games on the Nintendo 64, but you have to admit the Nintendo 64 controller sucked baloney balls. The fact that the joystick was in like the middle of the controller in like such a far away reach from where your hands would naturally rest on the controller is terrible. The controller design is bad. The games on the 64 were good. The design for the controller was bad, but where there is bad, there is room for improvement. All right. And now we finally, I'm gonna save this one for a little bit, you know. Yeah, I'm gonna save that one. I'm gonna put this one right here because they're basically the same thing. I don't even want to go over that one again. They're basically the same controller. It's just, yeah. Okay, they came around the same time. Okay, whatever. Anyways, I'm gonna put this off-brand controller down there too because I don't like it. It doesn't have a joystick. Okay, now that I got those ones out of the way, I feel like I'm hitting the controllers where I definitely use them now, and I definitely have a very strong opinion on these controllers, okay? So now, we're hitting the PS4 controller. The PS4 controller is the definite A tier. I think the PS4 controller is really good. I loved using it as a kid. Playing on the PS4 was great. It was fantastic. It was phenomenal. It was a nice controller. It was nice. It was very nice. I think, you know, and I liked how it was more sleek. It was a very like thin controller, and it just did what you needed it to do, and it didn't get in your way like some controllers on this list. But now we have the best controller. The controller that every controller tries to be like from here on forward. The best controller that there ever was, okay? The controller that made gaming so iconic that branding for just game controllers look like this, all right? the Xbox 360 controller. That's our first S tier. It has to be the first S tier. It was the most iconic controller in gaming ever. It's hard to beat the Xbox 360 Elite controller, okay? That controller is insanely iconic, okay? Not only did it feel good by just holding the controller, everything felt like it makes sense, but everybody started copying its homework. All the controllers, like, let me bring up this. Look, the PS5 controller. Look at that. It's copying the design of the 360 controller, okay? And there are other controllers that basically did the same, like this. Though it's bulky, look at it. You could tell the layout, everything is basically the 360 controller. It's hard to disagree with how amazing the 360 controller was, especially with how it felt back in the day. Like the joysticks were buttons, the colorful XYZ baby buttons back when they still did that, back when you could have life in a controller. And the icon that made this Xbox really stand out, the fact that it became a button itself, was honestly revolutionary. It was amazing at the time, you know. I think also another iconic controller is this, the PlayStation 2 controller. I think the PlayStation 2 controller also goes in A tier. I think for, like, after the failure that was the PS1 controller, the fact that they were able to take it and just make it better and what a controller should have been like back then, it was phenomenal, because they already had a pretty good design and how it felt the controller. It wasn't perfected yet, but it was pretty good. And the thumb joysticks were a little bit out of, like, a little bit uncomfortable, but they were there. And we got 2 of them, and it was amazing. The games that you could play on the PlayStation 2, the library of games, honestly, for the PlayStation 2 felt like they were endless. There was endless games. One of my favorite games to play on the PS2 was Destroy All Humans 1 and 2. The Godzilla Unleashed series, they had that on the PlayStation 2. We had Resident Evil, GTA San Andreas, a bunch of different games that I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know that they were phenomenal, and the controller made it just better. Because, well, let me tell you this, you know, like, I still remember the cheat code for some codes in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas: triangle, square, circle, X, 101, down, up, and I summon a jet. It's just like that. So, like, just stuff like that, you gotta give it to the controller. It felt nice back then. PS2 was doing so good. And then they just didn't innovate at all. The PS3 controller was literally the same controller. So I'm moving it back down to C tier. They did not innovate at all. At least with the Xbox One controller and the other Xbox controllers, they always tweaked the design. But for PlayStation, they didn't start tweaking the design until the PS4 era. They just kept copying and pasting the same controller, but just adding stuff to it, which is fine. I mean, you could definitely tell, like, if I just hold these over next to each other, they look the same just without the joystick, but you could definitely tell that this is a PlayStation 2 controller. So PlayStation 3 controller is where they get docked, because it's just a copy and paste. And then the PlayStation 3 wireless, I'm also going to put in C tier. Though they did make it wireless, still the same design, still same everything. It's, you know, it's just, yeah. Circle, circle, L1, L1, L2, R1, R2, triangle, circle, yeah. Triangle, circle, triangle, yeah. You have a tank, man. Vice City noted, yeah. So, and then there's these. So there we go. Then we have most of the PlayStation controllers. Now we have a goated controller that deserves the top spot of A tier. The Wii remote controller was very revolutionary for the time. I think, you know what? No, I feel like one Nintendo controller deserves the top spot, and I feel like everybody knows what Nintendo controller deserves the top spot, because we all know which Nintendo controller deserves the top spot, and it's the GameCube controller. And I'm just gonna slap it right there. We're gonna talk about the king of Nintendo gaming controllers in just a moment. We're gonna get to the king, and then we're gonna talk about the Wii remote controller. I like the motion sensor. A lot of the games that you could play on the Wii were phenomenal with the Wii remote. There was a lot of games that I remember playing as a kid on the Wii. Again, Godzilla Unleashed. Wow, big surprise. The Godzilla nerd likes to play Godzilla games on any console. But I did like playing it a lot. I liked playing Melee, or not Melee, I liked playing Brawl on it. There's a bunch of Resident Evil games. Dead Rising 1 was really fun on it. A lot of Resident Evil arcade shooter games I played on there. I think one of them was Resident Evil Revelations. It was a really good controller. I liked it. The Joy-Con, the buttons, Wii Sports, they had really good controls with the really good game, with really good games. So there we go. We got that. And then now we're going to be talking about the Pro Controller for the Switch, which I think is the B tier. Not only is this controller copying the Xbox homework, it's just not doing it good enough, and it's chunky and it's clunky, and it's, although I like the controller, I just think out of all the other controllers, there are just definitely better controllers out there. There are just better controllers out there. This controller, I have no idea what this thing is. It has like a little mini screen on it. I've never seen this controller a day in my life, so I'm slapping it in D tier for Abomination controller. I'm pretty sure this is just the Xbox original controller, but they made it more of a sleek design. So that's like the in between before, you know, they made the perfect controller, which was the Xbox 360 controller. S plus tier, you know what, honestly, yeah, we need to make, you know, bam, we need to separate it as plus, and we'll have the GameCube controller right next to it, because they're both of those controllers are in leagues of their own. Okay, they're just some of the best controllers out there, just saying. And now we'll go ahead and put the Xbox One controller and the PS5 controller side by side to each other. The Xbox Series X controller and the other newer Xbox controllers haven't really innovated, so they get those kind of docked points that I did for the PlayStation 3 controller. But it's still like, it's still the best controller. You know, how do you go from perfect to better, but then you just stop? You know, there's not much they need to do, you know? I think both of those, I think the PS5 controller is also really good. I like the feel of it, you know? But I think I still just prefer the Xbox 360 and Xbox One controller. I still prefer the Xbox controllers. That's what I use on whenever I play games, like controller games on Steam. I'm using an Xbox controller. It's just a controller I like to use. If I'm playing fighting games though, like Dragon Ball Xenoverse, I love my PS4 controller. The buttons are really small and tight together, so you can actually use combinations and attacks a little bit faster in those games. You know, that's just how I feel about them too, you know, so. And now we're going to talk about the first Steam controller in C tier. What were they thinking with this thing? This thing looks ugly. It looks oogly boogly. Some people like it. I just can't imagine how. I get it that it's supposed to be like a controller, but also like a mouse and keyboard somehow with the haptic pads and stuff, which that's cool. They kept it on the new Steam controller, but like I have no idea how this thing's gonna work. This thing looks big and clunky. I can't honestly move myself to put it above B tier, mainly because I don't know how, I don't know what the underneath is, so I don't know how much room we have underneath to actually grip the controller. So I'm gonna put it in B tier. Just by the looks of it, it looks really big and clunky, and I don't know if I like where the joysticks are on it as well. Looks like it's a very low-handed controller with those haptic pads, but you know, PlayStation controllers are better for fighting games with their D-pad placement. Yeah, yes. So now we have the Joy-Cons. We have the Joy-Cons. They're not, and as they're not. I'm gonna be honest, the Joy-Cons suck balls. I'm gonna be outrageous, and I want to put them in D tier. Mainly because, you know what? That'd be very disingenuous of me. I have my gripes with the Joy-Cons, mainly with how bad they get stick drift and how bad the button mapping is on them, how often they break, and how annoying they are to fix and replace. But as a controller, being able to use the Joy-Cons and have 2 controllers to play games with your friends, I feel like that does give them points. I feel like being able to play like mini games like Boomerang Fu and other types of games like Mario Party with just 1 Joy-Con, and you can split one and play with your friend right there and then. That's really good. That's good controller design, except for the problem that they're all $80 for 2 Joy-Con controllers. Because they don't sell single Joy-Cons, they sell them in sets because they're supposed to sit on the deck of the Switch, so they are, you know, you're really playing with fire with them. They either work good or they break really fast, and there's no in between. That's my biggest gripes for them. And honest to honest, you know, I can't really put them in any other tier because, like, A, they're way too small. I don't like how they feel in my hands most of the time. And B, I'm not a huge fan of them. You know, that's why I got the Pro controller. And the fact that the Pro controller is better than the Switch Joy-Cons. So you know what? I'm moving them down to C. I'm moving them down to C tier. They don't deserve to be in B if the Joy-Con I bought and the Pro controller I bought and it's way better. $20 to $30. Yeah, that's crazy. The Switch 2 controllers I heard are a little bit better, but I'm not buying a Switch 2. I refuse to buy a Switch 2, so I'm just gonna toss them in D tier. Only because there's not enough games right now to really tell on what they can actually do. And like, people are saying that you could use them like a mouse, like how they used it in the thing, but they haven't made any games to show that feature off besides the one show off game that shows off all the features, but they make you pay for it even though it's a showcase game, and it's hardly a game. It's just basically a tutorial about the Switch that they want you to pay for. So I have my gripes with the Nintendo controllers. I think Nintendo peaks at GameCube, and then the Wii controller is another good one, and then they fall off. Like, they're not very great. Xbox controllers are stand on top because back then they were really looking to innovate on controller design and what gaming could be. Now that's really a Steam thing, so I'm wondering if this Steam controller, when we get our hands on it, I wonder what it's gonna look like. I have high hopes for it, but also, you know, Xbox controllers are universal. Exactly, yeah, Xbox controllers are universal. Sega, I remember playing Crazy Taxi in Sears when my mom was shopping. Yeah, I remember playing Sly Cooper on a test demo once. I never touched the game again, but I do remember that game. All right, and that's it. That is it for this tier list.